Welcome to Sacred Realms. It's a great day in Hyrule, y'all. Welcome to Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast. I am your host, Lyndon Willoughby. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Willoughby. We are the only two people on this show tonight, Matt, and we are also recording remotely, which that is like a combination of events that we haven't had happen on this show in quite a long time.
Yeah, we're basically like in the Sky Islands, except we call it the cloud, and it's all this virtual data space that's surrounding us. So it's welcome to the digital version of Hyrule, I guess. But yeah, we're here. It's stormy and gross and nasty in North Texas, so decided that be safer and more convenient for everybody to do this not co-located for the first time in a long time. And it feels a little weird, I'm not gonna lie.
Super timely reference to Sky Islands, Matt. That was very appropriate given a lot of the stuff that happened today, and of course the release date of Tears of the Kingdom, towards which we're all careening at an incredible pace right now.
Absolutely, yes. I'm glad that that hit exactly where I hoped it would hit.
It did. It really did. No, this is definitely not my favorite way to pod. You know, I love it when it's a nice 60 degrees outside. There's a stogie to be had. Just a bunch of friends around a table. That's my favorite way to do this whole sort of thing. But every now and again, when circumstances require, we can be flexible. And you know what? That's what we're doing.
Indeed, flexibility is survival. So if you can't adapt occasionally, then you're not going to go anywhere. So I'm glad that we have, and say what you will about COVID, almost all of it bad. I would say the one good thing that has really come out of it is the expansion of telework and telework adjacent technologies that we are taking advantage of. So, we will say thank you to human ingenuity for that. And I guess thank you to the coronavirus for causing us to
wouldn't go that far.
Do that.
Wouldn't go that far. We rose up in spite of that terrible plague.
Yeah, it was a bad time. But one good thing did come out of it. So we'll just be happy for that, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, definitely. Look at us surviving over here. We adapted and we're surviving.
I might even say thriving.
It would be awful if like this one super specific thing broke the pod. Like if it all just fell apart right here. Like,
well, we can't record an episode when we're not physically together, so we're never gonna be able to do pod ever again.
Guess there's no going forward.
That would be bad.
Truly the darkest timeline right there. No, I'm super happy to be recording this episode at all, honestly. As you all have probably realized, it's quite a few days late. This is going to be releasing on Friday, usually release on Wednesday. I was stricken by seasonal allergies early in the week. There's this stuff that's falling from the trees all around my house. It's green and dusty, and it robbed me of my voice. It was pretty bad. Matt knows, he saw me this past weekend and I sounded like death.
Yeah, you literally couldn't even get out a full sentence without just going like this, and then you couldn't hear anything. So yeah, no, it was pretty rough. But glad we're back on track. The wonderful invention of the hot toddy has saved your vocal cords.
It has indeed.
Pod.
I'm having another one tonight, and actually, this is one of my favorite recipes that I've made so far. So I usually make a hot toddy with whiskey, honey, lemon, and then tea. Right?
Sure.
This one I'm actually using. So we've got this distillery in Texas. It's called Waterloo Distillery. And they make a lot of really good stuff. They make whiskeys, gins, vodkas, all that kind of thing. But they have a gin that they make that's aged like bourbon. So it's really dark. It's pretty sweet. And I got it because I was wanting to try and make like an old fashioned with it or something. And it's not my favorite for that kind of thing. It tastes like Coke. Like when mixed with other whiskeys, it just tastes like Coke. It's too sweet. It just tastes like you're having a whatever and Coke, you know? And that's not really my jam so much. So I was a little disappointed, but then on a lark the other night, I decided it's like, you know what? I'm firing up a hot toddy. I'm going to try it with this antique gin. And it worked spectacularly well. It is delicious.
Did you just say on a lark?
Yep.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yep. That's
Fair
a real
enough.
phrase. It is a real phrase.
It is. No, it is. It is a real phrase. It's just not one that I hear very often, if ever.
Well, maybe it's all this. Maybe it's all this tea I'm drinking. I'm defaulting to like a more proper form of speech.
the European or British form of English. Are you going to add unnecessary e's to everything now?
Yeah, that's the weirdest deal. Like I wondered why every instance of color and flavor in my plot recap had a U added in.
Have an extra U that serves no purpose whatsoever.
I didn't know why I did that, but now I understand.
Now it makes sense. Now we're all there. Okay. I'm glad we could solve that mystery for you.
You've helped me so much, Matt.
That's what I'm here for. I occasionally try to be helpful.
So anyway, my voice is all better now. And we got to get back on this horse because we definitely don't have weeks to skip at this point. We definitely do not want to be pushing into our Tears of the Kingdom time. So got to keep it rolling. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we've got a really good section of game to talk about here. Something that I am personally very excited about is we know what game we're playing next now. And we try not to be partial about what our next game is going to be. That's why we always let the listeners choose. But I'm glad we got the one that we got. So for those of you who don't know, if you missed our social posts or anything, it is official that we will be playing Phantom Hourglass for our next game. So I know it might strike everybody as a little bit weird to hear that that's the one that I was personally hoping we would play. But, I'm kind of glad that we're getting into a game that neither Lyndon nor I have even touched. So that's going to be interesting. And also, Minish Cap is really high up there on a lot of people's rankings. So I'm glad that we're going to have a little variety and we're not just going to spend the last 2-ish years of pod playing through games that people don't generally rank in their top. So, I think all in all is a very good thing that we're playing Phantom Hourglass next. And I think also its proximity to Wind Waker will be beneficial to that game specifically. So, lots of good things to look forward to, not only our upcoming 4 weeks of Tears of the Kingdom, but also everything after that too. So stick around and listen to some good pod, including the episode today.
And yeah, much like you, Matt, I'm very excited to get into Phantom Hourglass. That is a Zelda game that I have never played, and those are few and far between for me. So always looking forward to getting into something new and really kind of judging it for the first time, as an adult without the glasses of nostalgia. So in addition to our next season, we obviously this is season 8. Next season's going to be season 9. However, we're not going immediately from this season to the next one. We're going to have a gap, like we've been saying. We're going to have 4 weeks of Tears of the Kingdom coverage. Speaking of Tears of the Kingdom, it was a big old day on the internet for that game, Matt. There was a preview embargo that was lifted for a lot of different people who had gotten the chance to do an hour of hands-on time with the game. Outlets, classic outlets like, your IGNs and your The Verge and Polygon and places like that. And then also some streamers and content creators. Actually, friend of this show, Nintendo Fangirl, was one of the people who was invited to participate in that as well, which is very awesome because she's actually coming on the show next week. So I don't know. I know it's great. I don't know to what extent we're allowed to ask her about any of that. I'll check in with her on that before she comes on. And if she does, if she is able to give us any thoughts on this show, then of course we'll drop all the requisite spoiler tags and whatnot. But that's going to be a very interesting discussion, I think, if we're allowed to get into it at all. I personally had a very good time watching some of these previews. No spoilers that we're going to drop here, obviously. No need to fast forward at all. But basically, this was just a preview covering the mechanical hooks of Tears of the Kingdom, much in the same way to where hands-on previews for Breath of the Wild were focusing on, like, here's how you use your Sheikah Slate, and here's how weapons work, and here's some combat on the Great Plateau, kind of like that. And what I saw was very encouraging to me. It made me feel very excited about the sandbox that this game is going to have us playing in. And yeah, it seems like it's got legs, I guess is all that I'll say. I was impacted very positively by everything that I saw.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have not looked at any of that stuff. I think personally, I have seen kind of everything that I want to see before the game comes out. I didn't feel that way about Breath of the Wild. I really did want to see as much of Breath of the Wild as I could because it was so new, because it was so different, because it was such a big departure from the Zelda series in general. But I feel like, for me, Tears of the Kingdom is similar enough to Breath of the Wild. It's not going to have a whole new hook. Like, it's not going to be the first open world Zelda game. And so I think that I have kind of seen enough personally to satisfy myself for, at least the next, 11, 17 days but when this one comes out.
Yeah.
2 weeks and some change. So, I think I'm good. So I haven't watched any of the new stuff. I didn't even watch the TV spot trailer that came out that I know was circulating around the Discord earlier this week. So I think I'm just going to kind of leave my Tears of the Kingdom knowledge as is, unless Sam is able to talk about some stuff. And then if she is, we'll talk to Sam about some stuff. But until then, I think I'm good. I'm just going to ride it in to see what all pans out in real time.
Yep. Nope. That sounds good. For those of you who do want to go and do some exploration, there's definitely no shortage of places to get it right now. Obviously, we 100% recommend that you go check out Sam, Nintendo Fangirl. Her coverage is excellent, and that your IGN's, Polygons, like we mentioned earlier, that information is out there. So if you're looking for it, then go forth and absorb all that you can. And if you're not looking for it, if you're trying to avoid it, then God help you, because it's everywhere.
Yes, it is. It is plentiful. There is no doubt about that.
Cool. All right. Well, with all of that being said, I think that it's time.
There it is.
There it is. There's my segue. I think that it is time to get into some housekeeping and get rolling on into this episode. What do you think, Matt?
I think let's do it. It is season 8, episode, what is this? 10? Episode 10, Turtle Rock.
Final main dungeon of this game.
All right, let's do it.
Awesome. If you didn't know, Sacred Realms is a weekly re-examination of The Legend of Zelda, one little slice at a time. Sacred Realms drops every Wednesday and is available on all major podcast networks. Every week, we play a new section of a Zelda game, and then we sit down here to talk and to drop our hot takes. If that sounds fun to you, please head over to Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to leave us a review. 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, and they have a chance to get a shout out here on the show. If you want more Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod to get access to our Discord channel, listener mail, vote on what game we play next, and so much more. Additionally, one of the benefits that Master Sword patrons and above get is that we read their names every week here on the show. Those legendary individuals are Connor, Shepherd Street, Matthew, Chris, Daniel, Fallout 907, Kelso, Tiffany the Star, Daxel, Patrice, Stephanie, Darknuck, Brian, George, Mike, Dylan, Lennon, Melanie, Kolku, Aiden, Rowan, Joshua, Nick, Dante, Gep, Brittany, Davey, Haru the Mighty, Derek, Albert, Mark, Andy, Cameron, Ben, Daniel, Nick D_TV, Travis, Christian, Jonathan, Hyrule Interviews, aka Max Nichols, Garrett, and Drew. These are the most legendary of individuals, and I would face a fire-breathing snapping turtle any day of the week with any of them.
Now, you see, I don't know if I would do that. Fire-breathing snapping turtle sounds a little outside of my realm of expertise or comfort. So,
well, but the trouble is, would you say the odds of you being in close proximity to a fire-breathing snapping turtle are like nil to begin with?
True. Yes.
So this doesn't work for you on any level.
That is also true. How about this? I would do that in the video game any day, for sure. In any video game, whatever video game they want. Yes, but I would be there virtually.
But then none of these people can do it with you. It's a single player game.
Right, but I'm saying if there is another game that is multiplayer that has a fire-breathing snapping turtle, I would do it.
All right, Pod, we need you to do some research on that. I need you to figure out if that is, in fact, another game. And if it is, then Matt's going to play it with all of you. There you go. He said it, not me.
Well, Lyndon, would you in person do this? Like, really? I have a hard time believing that.
I'm going to say yes, knowing that I have
will never be put in that situation.
Yeah, I'll never be put in a situation where I have to make good on that. So there you go.
Great.
That's how I feel.
Sounds like a cop-out.
That's how I feel, and I'm sticking to it. But without further ado, let's talk about what we played. We do that, of course, every week in the Sacred Realms Rundown, which is a 6-part analysis of what we played this week and the feelings that it made us feel. Today, we are covering A Link Between Worlds, Chapter 10. Part 1 is, as always, the plot recap. Tonight, read by me, actually. Been my first one in a little while, so I'm looking forward to it. Matt, you have to tell me to take it away.
Oh, okay. Well, Lyndon, in that case, we look forward to hearing it, and go ahead and take it away.
With Rosso now rescued from the ice ruins, we are so close to our goal of reuniting the sages. Only one sage remains, and so we turn back to our trusty map and search for a corner of Lorule which has yet to be explored. The southeasternmost corner of Lorule has yet to be explored, and so we strike out in that direction, hoping that we might come across another temple. On our way, we pay a visit to the Lorulean blacksmith, who gapes in awe at the sword that we carry. He offers to temper it using his own impressive skills, so that the Master Sword might become even sharper and do more damage than before. We hand over 2 Master Ore, and in return we receive the Master Sword, now a pure shade of gold. Our first test of this refined blade against a nearby Hinox reveals it to be significantly more deadly than it was previously. Surely a good thing to have around as we seek out the final dungeon. As with many other sections of Lorule, we find that the area we are attempting to reach is completely cut off from the main landmass by a vast chasm. Returning to Hyrule, we make a quick stop to Ravio to purchase an ice rod before searching for any dimensional cracks that might help us. And only after swimming upstream from Lake Hylia do we locate one, which deposits us into the murky waters of a Lorulean stream. Hilda's voice comes to us again, telling us that this area of Lorule is home to a vast complex meant to contain the power of fire. She senses a powerful force within this complex and supposes that it must be a sage. Swimming downstream, we quickly locate this massive building, but can't see any clear way to get inside. Frustrated, we search around the murky lake, dodging fireballs from aquatic enemies and finding a Maiamai or 2. We stumble across a massive floating platform which we climb up on, only for it to speak to us. It turns out to be a massive mother turtle who is having trouble locating her 3 children. With nothing better to do, and because we are a nice guy who just likes turtles, we take a quick look around the lake area to see if we can help out. A little exploration helps us locate the wayward reptiles, rescuing one from an enemy attack, helping another turn over off of its back, and helping dislodge a third from being stuck in a nearby wall. The 3 baby turtles pile onto the back of their grateful mother, who has no reward to offer us, but is happy to give us a ride anywhere we'd like to go. It's then that we realize the stack of 3 turtles makes a platform high enough for us to board the platform leading to the dungeon in the middle of the lake. We climb to the very top of the turtle stack and hop onto the metal grate of the platform leading to Turtle Rock. Grateful to have made a few new friends in this unlikely place. Before we can even enter Turtle Rock, we realize that we are blocked by a giant plume of lava erupting from a stream of molten rock. Realizing we might need to cool things off a bit, we retrieve our new ice rod from our pack and cast it towards the lava plume. The fiery hazard is immediately solidified into a pillar of stone, which we can merge into in order to cross the river of lava. Stepping into the dungeon, we are immediately assaulted by a wave of very hot air. When Hilda said that this place was built to contain the power of fire, she wasn't kidding. The entire interior space of the temple is filled with molten lava and inhabited by lethal worms which live in the flames, as well as wizrobes which harness the power of the fire to use against us. Exploration proves difficult, and reaching other areas of the dungeon is only possible by traversing a perilous-looking network of metal walkways which are suspended over the magma. The ice rod proves to be invaluable in traversing this dungeon, due to both its ability to turn pools of lava into traversable surfaces, but also its ability to temporarily freeze the seesaw-type ramps scattered throughout the dungeon. After much exploration and many minor burns, we find ourselves not only with the key to the boss's chamber, but also a spiffy Hylian shield which is capable of deflecting magic bolts. Eventually, we drop down a chute into a lower room, which is home to a monstrous shelled creature moving back and forth under a grated metal floor. It spits pillars of flame up at us at every chance it gets, and the only way that we can find to damage it is by dropping ice blocks from our ice rod through the gaps in the floor. Eventually, the creature has had enough and vaults itself onto the same level as us to do battle more directly. This monstrous snapping turtle attacks us with both its sharp beak and its huge eruptions of fire. After taking a healthy amount of damage from our sword, it retreats back into its shell and spins around the arena, trying to deal us a fatal blow. Dodging all of these attacks, in addition to the pillars of shooting lava up from below, we are finally able to deal a killing stroke to the beast. And as with the other bosses of Low Rule, this triggers the appearance of a portrait, this time the likeness of Lady Impa. We touch the painting and once again find ourselves in the Chamber of Sages. Impa congratulates us on managing to reunite all of the sages and explains that with all of their power combined, they are able to summon the elusive Triforce of Courage, which will imbue us with the ability to defeat Yuga Ganon. The sages concentrate all of their magic towards the top of the chamber, and where their beams converge, a golden triangle appears. The chamber morphs into a spiral staircase, which we slowly climb towards this incredible prize. The various sages we have met along the way offer words of encouragement as we pass them, and we feel comfort in the company of these friends that we have made along our long journey. Finally, we stand before the Triforce and take it in our hands. We feel its power coursing through us, and as the white light whisks us away back to Low Rule, we feel a sense of triumph and a burning desire to take on Yuga and save Zelda. That has been the plot recap. Let's go ahead and get into part 2, which is our takes, where we talk about this section of the game and how it made us feel. Before we do that, I'm going to do that thing I do every week, where I do the plot recap, where I look immediately to Matt, our plotsman of the pod, to give me some validation on my performance.
The validation is given, Lyndon. You have done an exceedingly good job as always when you fill in for me, which I greatly appreciate. It has been kind of a crazy week as I prepare for a major life event coming up on Saturday, and some other things that have been going on. So thank you for stepping in and helping out in your little bit of downtime that you had today.
I was happy to do it. I'd do anything for you.
Oh, let's not get too sappy. That's not what people are here for.
No. Let's get here. Quick, antagonize me.
Lyndon, you had a few stumbles in there. You need to tighten it up. Come on.
Dang
Get it
it.
together.
All right.
All right, fine. There you go. We're back to the sibling antagonism. Hooray.
Balance is restored. All right. Part 2, which is our takes, Matt. This section of the game, what did you think? I mean, we're cruising towards the end right now. Like, we're getting
for sure.
We're getting real close to the end of this game, and in fairness, we're exploring a section of the map here that we have not been to before. And even though it doesn't require the same level of effort as what we did last week, there is some stuff to kind of get up to here. So, yeah, tell me, what did you think?
Yeah, so I like this area. I generally like the laked areas of most of the Zelda games that I've ever played. They're among my favorite of the vistas or the explorable areas usually. And this is no exception. I think this area of Low Rule actually does an interesting thing in being one of the areas that I think is better than its counterpart in A Link to the Past, mostly because it doesn't have the stupid ice palace in it, which I hated in A Link to the Past. So that's a big thing in its favor. And also it has a giant turtle, which everybody loves turtles, like you said, but we specifically love turtles. They are kind of our family mascot. So that was kind of a fun little thing. I really liked helping out Mama Turtle find all of her babies and get them back and safe and sound and all that. That was a feel good little side quest, saving them from this very dangerous place, especially the one that was getting bullied by those. I don't know, what are they? The
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, the Ninja Turtle boys, who I don't know why the Ninja Turtles would be harassing the bigger turtle, but anyway, I guess bullies don't need a good reason to do what they do. So there you go.
They really don't.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I liked doing all that. It is funny. I actually rescued 2 out of 3 of the turtles like way early on in the game without even really knowing why I was doing it. I just saw some turtles and helped them out. So that was interesting going back, and then because I didn't even see Mama Turtle before I found specifically the one that was like up on the ledge. I just like randomly walked into that guy at some point and was like, "Oh, you don't need to be up there, buddy." So
you had
him.
You had one poor turtle friend who was like just awaiting being saved this entire time while his siblings were like roaming freely throughout the lake.
Yes, and I really feel like it's on the siblings at that point for not going to the rescue of their turtle siblings. So, look, y'all have been free for about 8 dungeons. Maybe not that many. How many Low Rule dungeons have we done? They've been free for, I don't know, we'll call it 4. We'll be generous. They've been free for 4 dungeons. Like, they can go save their little brother or sister or whatever.
You're shifting the blame, but I will allow it.
Yeah, Mom would never let us get away with abandoning Jackson to be bullied while we just wandered around if we had the time.
Nope, that would have been a grounding offense for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I did. It was. Go ahead. I just want to say I think it was super interesting that. So to your point about the version of this area that's in A Link to the Past and how it's home to the Ice Palace, hadn't really occurred to me before just now that the Ice Palace and Turtle Rock, both of which are present in both games, just swapped places between them, right? Like Turtle Rock is now down here and Ice Palace is up in the mountains, where it's vice versa in A Link to the Past. Yep.
They just did a little swippity swappity.
I'm having a hard time remembering, was Turtle Rock in A Link to the Past a fire dungeon as well? I think it was just...
Yes.
Was it? I think it was just cavey.
Mm-hmm. I think it had the Vires, didn't it?
That's Link's Awakening.
Oh. I'm pretty sure it was still fiery.
Hold on, I'm looking up a picture.
Okay, I was about to do that too.
A Link to the Past. Turtle Rock in A Link to the Past was a fire dungeon. It has a lava central room. It's the room where it has all the chutes that you have to kind of it's like a network of chutes that take you from one place to another.
Yeah.
The entirety of that room is filled with lava below the chutes. So yeah, there you go.
Yep, then I would say that it classifies for sure as a fire dungeon.
Yeah, Turtle Rock and Link's Awakening is most definitely a fire dungeon.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but cool. There you go. So anyway, I definitely think it's very interesting that they've just totally swapped places here. Would be kind of wondering what the decision-making process was like on that. Probably just a little something to help differentiate the games from each other, even though... like the dungeons are like still very, very similarly themed,
Yeah, for sure. But they're not similar in execution at all. Like
No.
this is so different than the Turtle Rock of A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we talked about last week, Ice Palace is a completely different game.
I definitely agree with you. So I enjoy the whole little side quest where you have to free the turtles. I think that's fun. It's nice to meet a friendly little character here. I mean, Low Rule is definitely not brimming with those. So that was definitely nice. Mama Turtle seems like a very nice little reptile. And this is all a pretty good time. I like this area of the map quite a lot. I will say that the Mai-Mais that are here, I thought were all just a little too easy to find. I blew through them pretty quickly. And I also kind of feel like, I don't know, like, especially compared to how much game there is to play in the section of map that we were at last week. I feel like I wish that there was just a little bit more going on here for how much of the map it's taking up, right?
Now, would you attribute, I guess one follow-up question I have to that is, how much time did you spend doing something like the Tower of Terror, or Tower of Treachery, or whatever last week? Because
I'm not really including that.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the getting to the dungeon in both High Rule and Low Rule.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. Like, there's still more going on here than there is in, say, like, I don't know, the lead up to Swamp Palace, for instance.
Well, I would say like the one with the least amount to do was Swamp Palace. You at least had the talking bomb flower. I would say Thieves' Hideout, maybe, and Skull Woods both didn't really have a lot of lead up.
Yeah, Thieves' Hideout really only just had that song puzzle. I guess that's definitely nothing too substantial. So yeah, that's fair. But no, I mean, look, the thing is that I think this is just yet another installment of this conversation that we kind of keep having where even though this area of the map is fun and there's interesting things to get up to, we've filled in so much of this game at this point, right? Like we're filling in the corners now as a hobbit finishing off a feast would say. That's a very deep cut.
That is a very deep cut for Fellowship of the Ring. That's
not even movie quote. That's straight out book. Yeah.
Yes, that's when they're talking about Bilbo's birthday feast, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like when they're finishing up all the little bits on their plate, right? They call it filling.
Right
in the
before
corners.
Bilbo gives his speech and goes off into the wild blue yonder.
Yeah, exactly.
Plays his little prank. Yeah,
we're doing that in this game right now. We're just kind of we're filling up little bits and pieces of the map that we haven't been to yet, but most of the exploration is already done. And it's again like you have to get to that point at some point in a game like this, right? But it is always a little bittersweet for me once I'm at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm starting to wonder, and I'm going to wonder aloud, and feel free to disagree with me as well as everybody listening, but is this a symptom of top-down Zeldas more so than it is 3D Zeldas because of how many dungeons they have? Like, when you're trying to fit in, let's call it 11 dungeons in a game, which is how many dungeons this game has, not including Low Rule Castle. Like, there's only so much overworld you can put in without being Breath of the Wild sized. And obviously, games back then and, not even all games now are even close to that big. So, I'm wondering aloud if that is a symptom of top-down Zeldas, because I feel like in top-down Zeldas we get to this point, the filling in the corners, a lot sooner than we do in 3D Zeldas. Like, even as far back as 3 episodes or 4 episodes ago, we were like, yeah, we've kind of been to all the major places. Now we're just kind of doing random things in those major places to try to fill out our time in between dungeons. Like, am I making sense there? Or
no, you are. I think it's
Okay.
just like, so I'm trying to think about the way that this is handled in a lot of the 3D Zelda games. And I think one of the things that sort of helps those games avoid this feeling is the fact that the overworlds themselves typically, like, you max out on the amount of exploration that you can do in like the main hub area of those overworlds pretty quickly. Like, you know, you can spend way less time messing around in Termina Field or Hyrule Field or whatever before it kind of feels like you've got nothing left to do versus an overworld in a top-down Zelda game, right? But as you progress through a 3D Zelda game, you're coming to new areas that are each kind of levels in a sense. And then you have the dungeon, which is a level inside of a level. And those areas are typically new to you, the player, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's more of a the spokes on the hub feel a little bit more substantial in a 3D Zelda, I guess is another way, a simpler way of putting that.
Yeah.
And because you're right, like the main exploration of overworld, except for if you're in like Wind Waker, is over fairly quickly. And that's true of every game besides Breath of the Wild and Wind Waker, really, that I can think of off the top of my head. So it's just when you get down to the, you know, Zora's Domain and the Pirate's Hideout and the, I mean, I could keep going down the list, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like when you get to those feel more substantial than what we're getting here. And in many of the top-down Zeldas, which is you're back in Kakariko Village or, you know, the Lost Woods right outside of Kakariko Village. That's a 4 grid square space that you explore in, you know, a very short amount of time, or use an item to unlock one grid square space. Wow, I'll say that 10 times fast, to explore in. So like it's just feels smaller and goes by faster, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess the areas, like the spaces in which the dungeons are housed, they really, you know, like they have interesting stuff to do in them often enough. But it's a lot less of a sense of like, I have to get through this place to get to a dungeon in my experience, right? Like they're sort of there, and they're just not super large, right? And I think that it's interesting because we don't really have an ultra modern top-down Zelda game to really judge this style of world design adequately in. Like this one that we're playing now is the most recent one, and its whole shtick is that it's using the exact same overworld as A Link to the Past, right? So right off the bat, it was not going to have anything much more massive than this. The other more recent top-down Zelda game that we have is just a complete remaster of Link's Awakening, which again reuses its overworld. So we really don't have a top-down, wholly new modern Zelda game that is going to give us the opportunity to be like, okay, is Nintendo going to start making these worlds bigger now that they've got more resources to play with? Like, I'd like to believe that that's true. But we really just don't have a good example of that to go off of.
Yeah, we don't have anything that's pushing the boundaries of top-down design the way that Breath of the Wild pushes the boundaries of 3D, and now Tears of the Kingdom is going to push those bounds again. Like, there haven't been innovations.
But it really is a shame, though, because I think that there are Zelda-like games that do have truly vast kind of what we would consider top-down worlds. And I think that that's totally possible. This is a little bit of an aside, you know, just based on something I feel like the extent to which this area of the map is good and fun is not necessarily deserving of this conversation that's really spun off of it. Like, it's not like I hate, it's not like I hate this, you know, it's like, it's fine,
not at all.
Great. Yeah. It's great, but it just kind of has me musing about like, what are the possibilities? And I do think that, I think the ability to create a top-down Zelda that is more vast feeling that helps like ward off this sort of late game malaise we're talking about is definitely like, I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't saying that to be critical or anything. Like, it's just a musing that I had in my mind that I felt like I wanted to say because I thought it would make good pod conversation, which I feel like it did.
It did.
And yeah, so I would be very excited to see Nintendo come and really show us what a next gen top down Zelda could look like, and what ways is that going to push the boundaries of current top down Zeldas that we have at our fingertips. And hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. So I think that's really all I have to say about the little sidebar conversation we spun off into.
Well, there you go. I mean, just in terms of like aesthetic and look for this area of the map, classic. It's a dirtier and grimier looking version of what we have in Hyrule, which is totally fine. I mean, I really just don't know that I have too much more to say about this. Again, a lot of times we talk about the Ravio item for the week in this section, but I feel like it really makes more sense for it to be in the dungeon map this time around.
No, totally agree. It's really a dungeon item, not really an overworld item. So I think the only question I had outside of that is, did you actually upgrade your Master Sword this late in the game, or did you do it a little bit earlier?
No, so I did. I saved my tier 2 upgrade for this section. Yeah.
Okay. So I did it at least a week earlier than you, maybe even 2 weeks earlier. Yeah, because I did it in the middle of Sand Palace, so I did it 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah, the big thing was I was going to do it last week, and then I kind of had it in my head that I wanted the Ice Palace because for some reason I was remembering that dungeon as being more difficult from a combat perspective, which didn't end up being true.
No.
But I wanted to go into Ice Palace not completely maxed out, save a little bit of that challenge. And anyway, like I say, it ended up being a totally moot point, but that's why I didn't do it last week, even though I had all the Master Ore that I needed. And to be honest, it wouldn't have even, I think, made too much of a difference this week. This is also not a very combat heavy dungeon.
No, it's really not. I think the only difference you probably would see one way or the other is when you get down to boss damage at the end. I had another question for you, actually. That's more of a Bloopy Trail question, so I'll save that one for later. Okay. I think that about covers down on my thoughts for top down or for this section of the game, so we can move on into the next part.
I do have one last thing that I want to ask you, Matt. So, just a general sort of check-in. We haven't really done this in a while, but we're coming to the end of the main section of this game, and obviously there's a lot of story left to unfold. We still have a final dungeon to review, like the end game dungeon. We've got Low Rule Castle. We have the end of the game, which is typically where a lot of really fun and interesting stuff happens. But
for sure.
With that being said, where are you at with this game at this point?
Yeah, so I, you and I started out really strong on this game, just with how much it impressed us and how fun it was and how it was like just a breath of fresh air and a very good top down. And while I still think that it is a very good top down, it has definitely fallen quite a bit in my esteem over the last 4 weeks, really 3-ish weeks. And that is because of something we've talked a lot about in the last 3 or 4 episodes, is just like the bite-sized nature of this game, which is how Cody put it on our, or how Josh put it on our Discord earlier this afternoon. Actually, Cody and Josh had a bit of their own discussion regarding this game, and it's whether the bite-sized nature helps or hurts it. And I think I have to come away with it, at this point, the bite-sized nature of the game is really not doing it for me anymore. Like, I think it is a definite detractor to how good this game actually is. I think that I come away from every time I sit down to play this game thinking, I wish I had 25 to 30% more of what I just had. And so it just keeps feeling not satisfactory. Like,
would you say it feels kind of like when the DVD logo is trying to hit the corner of the screen, but it never quite does?
Yes, that is exactly how it feels. It just hits right before like the Office cold open. Yeah, that's what. By the way, that's the best cold Office open. That is the best The Office cold open that has ever existed.
It's pretty fantastic.
It's that one.
It's
so
really
yes. That is exactly how I feel when every time I walk away from playing this game, and because we have to do it in such a structured manner, which again, I think this is only the second of all the games that we've played that may struggle or may be adversely affected by this. But every time I walk away from one of our play sessions, I'm like, I wish I had more. And maybe if I came back and played this without having to do it week to week and, just did it all, because really that's what we would end up in, like 3 or 4 play sessions, you beat the game. Like, this is a short game. So,
yeah.
That's where I am coming away with it. And it's making it less esteemed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think that to my recollection, in the past, when I played this game, it's been kind of like a 2 dungeon a night sort of deal. And when you break it up like that, it is really fun. And I think that's one of the reasons that I kind of recall it being more fun that I'm kind of having with it right now. Because it really does feel sort of unsatisfying to hop in, play for like 30, maybe 45 minutes, and then call it done. Right.
Right.
And so I definitely think you're onto something there, Matt. And I think that probably is the optimal way to play, honestly. I'm kind of right there with you, honestly. I think that I'm enjoying this game a lot, and I think that it has a lot of really good stuff going for it. But the fact that we haven't really had that late game major expansion of dungeons and difficulty and mechanics, like it really is kind of... It really is sort of dragging at this point, which is unfortunate because, I don't know, because like you said, we were feeling so positive on it up front. And in a lot of ways, we definitely still are. But I wouldn't say that it's feeling like magic to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way, like, when some of these Zelda games, when you're playing them, it just feels like magic, man. You can feel it. You're in a groove. You're vibing. It's like
magic. Yeah,
that exactly. And and what I feel like I'm doing is playing a very good, very well constructed Zelda game, but that little spark is kind of not there at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. I agree. So, and not to say that it's bad. Like, I'm not gonna construe this or let it be construed that I am no longer enjoying this game at all and that I think it's a bad Zelda game. That is not what I'm saying at all. It's just it started off so strong and it just feels like it's fallen off of a pretty hefty cliff.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah. At least in terms of like the newness of it and the enjoyment of it. I don't think that the experiences and the way in which they're constructed have fallen off a cliff because
no, not at all.
Like, because we've had some of the best dungeon experiences of the game somewhat recently, right? So, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, just wanted to get a quick vibe check with you on where things are going. Definitely not a 100% ringing endorsement, but like I said, a lot of stuff going to happen next week. So yeah, there is time. There is time for that sense of excitement to creep back in. I do think you're going to like the end of this game. It's a really fun time.
For sure. I still think Hilda's a bad guy. I do. I just do. I don't know. The last interlude we got from her, and every time it comes up, I'm just like, something going on there. I don't know what it is, but there's something.
Well, you'll find out next week, Matt.
That's true.
All right. Well, that's enough for part 2. Let's get into part 3, which is the dungeon map, where we talk about this week's dungeon from mechanics to music and more. We look up the name of this dungeon's boss real quick.
Yes.
Okay. This week's dungeon is Turtle Rock, which is this game's fire dungeon. It is basically a 2-level dungeon arranged in the shape of a turtle. Funnily enough, with wide open spaces in the very middle, and then the little legs. If you're picturing a turtle with all 4 of its legs and its head out, those are smaller rooms that you go into to solve some smaller puzzles. But most of this dungeon is just based around walkway traversal over the lava pits in the middle rooms. And there's a few different main mechanics that kind of happen that help you with that traversal. There are seesaw platforms that they seesaw up and down depending on which side you're standing on. But if you use the ice rod, then you can freeze the middles of them. It freezes them in place. You can also use the ice rod to petrify lava plumes that you can then merge onto. You can wall merge onto them. And you can also just make, you can use the ice rod to make stepstones in the lava floor. So that's kind of the main deal that's going on in this dungeon. What's the name of the boss, Matt? Grynex. Okay, there you go. So Grynex, the snapping turtle boss. But yeah, definitely, about as quintessential a fire dungeon as they come. You know what the 2 main rooms of this dungeon really remind me of, Matt?
What is that?
They remind me of the wide open room in the fire temple in Ocarina of Time, where it's just like moving walkways and platforms, and you're just kind of like trying to get to the various edges of this huge room to find, keys and free Gorons and whatnot.
Yep.
Kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It was a very interesting wheel and spoke design for this dungeon, where you're doing just a lot of the move into an adjacent room, see where you can get from there, and back and forth and back and forth. And, it was a very unique dungeon, in my opinion. I think interestingly designed, definitely hardly any combat whatsoever, which was kind of odd for a dungeon that is, this late in the game, quote unquote. Like, I know that you can technically play these in any order, but this seems like it should be a fairly late in the game dungeon, right? Am I misconstruing that?
No, I don't think you are. But the thing is, when you really look back on all of the low rule dungeons, would you say that any of them were really combat dungeons? I mean, I guess the closest that we ever really came was the Thieves' Hideout.
Yeah, that one probably had the most. Sand Palace had a decent amount, just because there were a lot of. I mean, I guess the lead up to Sand Palace really had a decent amount. Sand Palace itself didn't quite. Dark Palace, no. Yeah, I guess you're really right. There's not a lot of combat heaviness within the low rule dungeons, which is very interesting. I feel like top down Zeldas a lot of times can have very enemy dense dungeons, so it's kind of surprising that none of these really fit that bill.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the grand tradition of like going back as far as The Legend of Zelda. I mean, remember how combat dense so many of those dungeons were. And I know that it's not apples to apples because, those dungeons didn't really have puzzle solving as a mechanic in any major way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was basically all combat with a few exceptions, but still, I feel like your combat skills are never really tested in any of the low rule dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, this one's version of a mini boss room is just like a couple of whiz robes, if I remember correctly. Like,
no, it's the flame statues. The burning statues, like the red versions of the ice statues.
Oh, yeah. There's like 4 of them or 5 of them. That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing. Goodness.
Yeah, they kind of mob you, and then you have to take them down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Man, like, it's just... So I would say not much of the spoke rooms are super memorable for me. Like, the internal main rooms are interesting just because of the traversal mechanics that you have to use. which I thought was a really good use of the ice rod. Kind of, a easily telegraphed use of the ice rod, but still a good use. And especially like freezing the teeter-totter walkways, I thought was pretty good. But
so let's talk about the ice rod real quick, just as an item. So obviously the main mechanic here is that you drop ice blocks. You can use them to both stun enemies and to create walking platforms in the lava. And so let's see, kind of looking at the differences between the normal one and the better one. So the normal one only drops 1 ice block at a time. The better one will drop 4 all at once, which obviously that's a huge upgrade, especially in this dungeon, because it makes a ton more platforms than just the normal one.
Yes, I will say that it is an interesting, as far as like a combat piece, it can be somewhat of a drawback because none of the 4 actually go directly in line with where you're pointing. They go in kind of a like the number 4 on a dice, so it's in that block pattern. So if the enemy you're trying to hit happens to move out of the way in like a diagonal direction, that you could totally miss them. So that is an interesting, not total upgrade, but it is massively helpful for the exploration of the dungeon for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and even from a combat standpoint, the 4x4 square is definitely nicer, just in terms of like how many enemies you can stun at a time. I would still not say that this is a top tier combat option item. It's fine, but I think when you're looking at the tornado rod, there really is just no comparison, right?
Yeah, or the fire rod.
Yeah. Well, the fire rod being more purely offensive and the tornado rod being the best option for stunning, right? This is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of deal there.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I do think that its utility for insta-killing some enemies is really nice. Insta-killing those lava worms was good. And then two-shotting the fire wizrobes. I did like that. And of course, it was massively helpful in the fight against the fire gizmos, I think is what they're called. The statues that hop around and chase you. But yeah, against the fire statues, I used the ice rod instead of like the tornado rod, which I think you can actually use the tornado rod against these guys instead of the ice rod. But I used it.
I didn't even try.
Yeah. I mean, I used the ice rod, so I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure I used the tornado rod in the Tower of Treachery or whatever the hell it's called. I'm just going to keep calling it the Tower of Terror because I like that more. Okay. So I used the tornado rod on them in the Tower of Terror. So I know that works. Anyway, all that being said,
just in terms of using it to puzzle solve in Turtle Rock, though, I feel like there was a good amount of fun to be had there. There were enough different kinds of puzzles. There's three main ways that you have to use this thing, right? There's the seesaws, there's lava pillars, and then there's stepping stones. And all like having that variation of things just kind of leads to a more fun time, I think, than some of the other items that we've had to use.
For sure.
I want to say I was still having maybe just a little bit more fun with the sand rod and the desert palace, just because those puzzles, even though the sand rod only does one thing, those puzzles are still a bit more of like brain teasers, Yeah, I would say this is how I would put that. I would say that the sand rod is a less interesting item overall, but the puzzles in the desert palace were more interesting. Yeah. I think that sounds right. Regardless, I think that I got to give it kudos. Definitely a lot more going on here than with the fire rod in last week's dungeon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it was an interesting choice to have so many of the puzzles, especially in the back part of the dungeon, be focused around using the ice rod as a combat item, specifically where you have to kill all the wizrobes to create the platform so you can get the Hylian shield and maneuver around that second large open space.
Sorry, go on, and then I have something.
Yeah, so it's just odd to me that an item that was so obviously primarily designed as a traversal item, that about half the dungeon was kind of focused on using it in a combat mechanic kind of way.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do want to say that whole puzzle around having to kill the wizrobes to get the Hylian shield. I think it's so interesting because we've had a lot of conversations about how you go about getting the dungeon items in this game, right? Ranging from the Master Ore in Dark Palace all the way to much more easy options. This one I thought was super interesting. Like the puzzle itself is not complicated. It's just kill enemies. And once you've killed enough, then you get the item. Not a lot to it. But I did think one thing that does make it slightly more interesting is the fact that this is such a wide open room and it doesn't have breaks between tiles, I guess, the way that like a Link's Awakening dungeon does. Like the fact that you can just kind of mosey and the perspective shifts with you. So I think rooms like that, you typically feel like you don't need to kill all of the enemies that are in a room because it just like it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing, right? Like they're not all within eye line of you at any given moment, so you're not really worrying about it. Obviously, the first time that you do kill one of those wizrobes and you see one of those platforms pop up, then you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm doing something here. But I do still think that there's something to talk about there, right? Like the way that you can just like free roam around this wide open room, whereas in top-down Zelda games we're used to them being like tiled, contained experiences. I think there's a slight conversation to be had there.
Yeah, and I think it's even more interesting given the given the nature of the item that you have to use to kill the fire wizrobes. Like I can totally see somebody just being like, I'm just going to avoid the fire wizrobes because I don't want to mess with it. Or hit them once and then they teleport away. And then you're like, okay, well, like, fine, I'll just drive them off. And totally making it all the way through this second part without even having to kill one. And then you don't get the Hylian shield, which, I don't think you really need the Hylian shield a whole lot. At least you didn't in this dungeon. I don't know how it's going to play a part in Lorule Castle, but like it's just one of those things that I think would be easy to miss if someone was either going through it quickly or didn't have that I need to kill everything in sight kind of mentality that I have when I play video games. So I think that it's the second easiest item to miss.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. And in terms of your whole comment about you didn't use it a ton in this dungeon and you're not sure if you're going to use it in the next one, honestly, I don't remember if there is like a specific area where it's like, oh yeah, the Hylian shield is for this. I don't think that there is. And to be honest, that sort of leads me to an ongoing thing that I've been meaning to mention for the last few weeks, but just there hasn't really been an opportunity. And that is that the shield is something that I'm really not using in this game at all.
I cannot remember the last time I actively blocked anything with my shield.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah, just like at all. I just don't raise my shield because I don't really need to. Like I don't know if that's a thing that is I'm just not getting hit, or I don't care about getting hit that much because I have so much health and defense. Like I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of those things. But yeah, I don't block anything.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this was a cosmetic upgrade for me only. Like,
sure,
I now have a spiffier shield, and that in and of itself is kind of neat.
Absolutely. I always love the upgrades to the shields. I think it is one of those things that happens in Zelda that feels like a tangible upgrade, especially in games where you don't have a tangible upgrade system. Upgrading your shield is just like, I know that I have progressed X amount in this game and I feel accomplished because every time I look at this thing that I have equipped.
Right.
So
yeah.
I like it for that reason, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the Hylian shield. Let's talk a little bit about the flow of this dungeon. Like we said, it all takes place in 2 main rooms. And I would not say that obviously there's almost no backtracking involved in this dungeon from like room to room, because the little spokes, as you were calling them, or as I call them, the turtle's leggies.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
They're basically dead ends, right? Like they're all dead ends. Some of them have warp pads that you can get into, but none of them lead directly to other rooms. So most of the traversal that you're doing is just in those main rooms. Even though, with that being said, the fact that you've got kind of this flow of like the seesaw platforms being one of the main ways of getting around, and they are not permanently frozen. They only freeze temporarily. You do have to do a little bit of backtracking if you're like trying to troubleshoot your path through one of these rooms, right? Like you'll kind of go away and then you'll realize that you went the wrong way, and you kind of have to go all the way back around on walkways again and try it a different way. So I don't know. I did think that just because of that, I was spending a fair amount of time in these rooms messing around with like, what is the right way to get where I want to go? How do I get to the correct height on a wall to where I can merge into it and get over to this platform? Stuff like that.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I actually think I spent more time in this dungeon than I did in Ice Palace for some reason. So, I fully agree that the layout of these main traversal areas was such that you could spend quite a bit of time figuring out the optimal path. And also I was trying to explore every nook and cranny that I could. And I did find the 100 or 300 rupee piece, and I also got onto the fairy island, but I did not find the piece of heart island.
Oh,
so
you find it the exact same way you find the fairy island. It's a teleporter on the mid-level of one of the leg rooms.
Yeah, I didn't find that one for some reason. And then I ended up in the boss room and was like, oh, okay, well, so be it. So I may go in and try to get that if I feel so inclined. Anyway, all that to be said, yes, I think it's a very interesting and I think it's well designed. I actually liked this. I maybe liked this traversal more than Ice Palace, just because it was so different and there was 3 or 4 different things that you could do. It did start getting kind of repetitive with the just constantly tossing down ice blocks and moving around the same way over and over again. But I did enjoy it. I did. Did you enjoy it, Lyndon? I know you said that you thought it was interesting, but did you enjoy it?
I did. I don't know if I enjoyed it more than Ice Palace. I will say that if you're going to have a dungeon with this layout, which is only 2 floors and a minimal number of rooms, then this is the way that you have to do it to keep it interesting, right? Like you have to have your main hub rooms compact in this way. And that's the only way that you can really pull it off, because otherwise it just feels way too simplistic. But I do think that there was a very fine line being ridden here. And I do think that it was successful in all of its goals, right? Like we talk a lot about, especially in this game, we want a dungeon to have a main mechanic, and then we want it to have a successive amount of successful executions on that mechanic, right?
Yes.
And I think that this dungeon has that. Like, it's got its theme. It's traversal over lava pits and using the ice rod to manipulate the environment around you, right? And I think that it finds good ways of doing that, combined with this recurring theme in the dungeon of having to wall merge to get to. So like, the walls in this dungeon basically have 3 levels of height. There's floor, there's medium, and then there's high. And there's platforms and stuff on each of those 3 levels that you have to wall merge to, right? So it really does get a lot of mileage out of like making you think about, okay, I can see there's a key door, mid-level, 2nd floor. How do I get, like, where do I have to go to wall merge on that mid-level so I can scoot around there, right?
Yep.
And so I think that is interesting and fun. I don't think I spent as much time in here as I did Ice Palace. It was probably pretty close, but I think Ice Palace probably edged it out. But, I mean, like overall, I think that this is definitely one of the better low rule dungeons. And yeah, I did enjoy it. And really a lot of that too is atmosphere. I think it really capitalizes on Fire Dungeon as a concept pretty well.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, that's like what more can you really ask for from that perspective, right? Like, I feel like Fire Dungeon is one of those where it's like if you mess up the Fire Dungeon and it doesn't feel right, then you kind of really screwed up somewhere,
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to do a good aesthetic on a Fire Dungeon, in my opinion. So totally agree. I will say, so I think it did execute successfully. What I was kind of missing was an evolution on the mechanic. And like what I mean by that is take what you've been doing and iterate to include something slightly different, slightly new, slightly more challenging. And there hasn't been a lot of evolution or iteration in any of these dungeons on the main mechanics. Like
I was gonna say, man, that's this whole game. Like,
yeah, like it's always been the one mechanic, if you even have the one mechanic, like some of them don't, and then just a repetition of that mechanic. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. And so I think that's another thing that especially this week, for whatever reason, it kind of hit me this week more than past weeks, was just like, I'm not really seeing the normal levels of increase in difficulty or increase or slight change or evolution on a main mechanic in a dungeon. And that's something that I think is super necessary for a Zelda game to be top tier, is to really take that to the next level in some way.
Yeah, I really do agree with you. And I do think that there are one or two walkway puzzles that do iterate a little bit in the bottom floor of this dungeon. There's that one specifically where you have to hit the switch to make it go up, and then you've got a certain amount of time before it drops again, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one definitely has a little bit of like a frantic time-based component there, and you have to do a fair amount of thinking in the span of time before it drops back below the lava, but that is just one example. I can't really think of anything similar to that was really pushing the boundaries in any meaningful way. And yeah, that is something that is like, yeah, to your point, I do find some recurring disappointment in this game's lack of willingness to commit on like that third, like, I guess if there's 3 levels of difficulty to these mechanics, there's intro, there's, intermediate, and then like advanced execution of a mechanic. A Link Between Worlds never really feels like it makes it to the advanced stage.
Totally agree.
And this dungeon does not break that mold.
Correct. Yeah.
But regardless, very fun. And again, like, imagine doing Ice Palace and this in one play session together,
See, that sounds more fun. Yeah, that does. I mean, it just does. I think, I'll eventually make it around to replaying this one. And, I'll probably do it in a more binge style fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's smart. And I think that you'll have a very good time doing it. Is there anything else that you want to say about the main dungeon before we go talking about the boss?
I think it's odd that we get the Hylian shield in a low rulian dungeon.
I know. I was wondering that too. Like, how did this thing get here? It makes no sense.
No, that makes absolutely no sense. I can't even think of a semi-plausible headcanon for that, except for like someone from Low Rule stole it.
Really
put it in here.
I really like the Hylian shield. I think it's a lot of fun. It's one of my, like, this version of the Hylian shield. It kind of follows the Skyward Sword Breath of the Wild aesthetic for Hylian shields, right? With like kind of the more angular, pointy bits around the Triforce. And love it. And I really, really like that look. It's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite version of the Hylian shield ever. This and Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. I do wish that it had just been a different shield. Like, make it the low Rulian shield, you know?
That would have been so cool. Like, give it the purples and the blacks and the upside down Triforce and like go all out. Make something new.
I think that could have been a really good time, and I'm sort of sad that it didn't happen now. But at the same time, I think they were probably wanting a Hylian shield to put on the box art. So what are you going to do?
I mean, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. It's for marketing, Matt. It's all about that PR.
You know, as a logistics expert, I wouldn't say expert, as someone who works in logistics and operations, marketing is kind of the bane of my existence because everyone wants to do all these frilly things that just make no sense and cost way too much money. And you're like, I could do that for like 30% cheaper than what you're wanting me to do. Yeah, but it's about the customer experience. I mean, that phrase just like grinds my gears.
I am a noted enjoyer of frilly things that cost too much money. So
you are also an artist.
It's true. It's true. I really am. You have me pegged, Matt. That's how I live my life.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the boss and remind me this guy's name again. Grynax?
Yes.
Cool.
That is correct.
Neat.
Well done.
Thank you. I do have somewhat of a short-term memory. That was probably the extent of it, to be honest.
We have maxed out Lyndon's RAM for this episode.
There you go. But hey, at least I used it on something good. I thought that this was a fun boss fight. I think that past boss fights, even in the low rule dungeons, occasionally we've had issues with the boss either not feeling lethal enough or not taking like the boss fight being too short, or the mechanics of the boss fight not being, totally up to par. This one I feel like was just a very nice top third of the bunch to me. The fight is not too short. The boss is not really pulling any punches. I mean, he definitely deals a fair amount of damage. It's got two pretty fun and distinct phases. Excuse me. The only thing that I can really think to say is that this boss to me felt like maybe it was just a little too easy to avoid his attacks.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed with it as well, is on the avoiding the attacks part, because I think the only times that he really hit me was when he was doing his area of effect damaging little stompy thing. He was doing his Destiny boss impression,
right?
Stomp mechanic. So because other than that, it was pretty easy to avoid even his like long-headed turtle snap. He telegraphed that pretty heavily. So I never really had a hard time avoiding what I assumed to be his most damaging attacks. I did get hit by his pillar of fire once or twice, just because I was in the first round. I was trying to freeze those pillars because I thought maybe freezing his little pillars of fire would be the way to damage him, or I was trying to freeze one of the ones that pops up on the north, south, east, and west corners or points. So there's one at each point, that just a normal ass pillar of fire that pops up, and I was trying to freeze those and like make him run into them for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. I thought that might have been the right way to do it.
Well, so
turns out I made it way more complicated for myself than it needed to be, and all you had to do was throw the ice blocks on top of him.
Right. So I will say one of the things that was kind of fun about the spinny turtle section is that you can petrify those blocks of lava to defend yourself from his spin attack. I did a fair amount of that, and so that was a fun little way to manipulate the environment against him.
I did not do that. I just tried to run away from him. So, there you go. That's a better way to do it. I probably should have done that.
Matt, if it works, it works.
That's for sure. And you know what? It's probably designed to work that way. Interesting.
Almost like they put those there on purpose.
Yeah, I think that is probably what happened.
Yeah. But anyway, fun enough time. I mean, yeah, it's like, again, I was never in danger of dying in here. I've got way too much. I've got way too much health for that.
And you're even taking quadruple damage, and you're sitting there like sitting pretty.
Yeah.
So, because I'm just taking the normal amount of damage. He didn't even get me onto my second row of hearts. Like, I don't think the enemies in this game hit hard enough for how much power you have and for how many fairies you can carry. Like, you can carry, at least I can right now, I can carry 4 fairies or health potions. I have double defense. And I have like 12 hearts. Yeah. So it's crazy that these enemies are not doing a ton more damage.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I think if the boss itself is not going to do more damage to you, I mean, I would love to see versions of these boss fights where you have trash mobs in the room with you as well. You know,
for sure.
I mean, just any little thing to really push this over the top. And we're back to that discussion again of like, how hard does Nintendo intend for these games to be? And clearly the answer is, not that hard. I think, especially for top-down games now, they're kind of, very unwilling to move that dial too much in one direction. I think, your Breath of the Wilds and stuff, like obviously it has its whole own way that it deals with difficulty and the way that difficulty manifests in that game. So it's a completely different conversation. But yeah, I just challenge me more. Like, make things hit harder. Like, I want to be in fear for my life.
Yeah. And they're always trying to walk that line of difficulty and approachability. And with their target market, especially for 3DS specifically, having been, I think, a younger gamer, probably the age that we were when we started playing Zelda games, they're edging that towards the approachability side. I think they just swung it a little too far with this game into the too easy. And I mean, like, I'm not crazy, am I? Ocarina of Time, which was our first Zelda game, was not this easy, was it? Like, at least it was mine. I know yours was Link's Awakening, but
it was not. You also have to remember there were a lot less hearts for one thing in Ocarina of Time. There was no defense upgrade until you get to the very end, like that very last Great Fairy before you go into Ganon's castle. But there was no defense upgrade really. No, I definitely was harder than this for sure.
Okay. Cool. I'm not crazy. I'm not just one of those guys that's on the kids these days have games so easy. And back in my day, we died to one hit from everything.
Well, and even though, I mean, like Link's Awakening is a lot harder than this. As far as I remember them, the Oracle games are a lot harder than this. A Link to the Past is definitely harder than this, right? It's not that Nintendo has never really relied on difficulty as a thing in top-down Zelda games. It's just that they really aren't doing it for this one.
Yep. Okay, cool. Glad it's not just me.
It is not, Matt. You are not crazy.
Yay. Well, I mean,
at least
not about this.
At least on this specific topic, you are not crazy. Okay, so we kill the giant snapping turtle. We beat the dungeon. We rescue a sage, and we get the Triforce of Courage, which is a great time for everybody. Technically not part of the dungeon, but can we just talk about this? Really should have been in part 2, but can we just talk about how fun it is to actually acquire a piece of the Triforce in any given Zelda game?
It is always one of the best things, but I wanted to say before we move on from Grynex, is he Turtle Daddy?
Oh, I really, really hope that we didn't complete like I don't know, like we didn't behead the head of the turtle family, you know?
Yeah, but if we did, he was kind of a dick.
Grynex was not the funnest. Grynex definitely has an attitude problem. And I feel like Mama Turtle can do much better if that is the case.
Agreed. Hopefully she just finds someone of similar size that can, hang out. You got to have someone who can be on your level.
I mean, that's true. I can't fault your logic at all. Yeah, or at least someone of similar niceness, right?
Yes, niceness would definitely be important. For sure. Okay. Anyway. Now we can move on to the Triforce. Yes. getting a piece of the Triforce is one of the coolest things in any Zelda game. And I think it's actually one of the areas where Ocarina of Time doesn't shine completely, because it's kind of one of those like, oh, you mysteriously all of a sudden have the Triforce of Courage. I like getting the Triforce. I like doing something to physically receive it. I don't know why. Like, maybe that's just my I also like checking boxes and making to-do lists and checking things off of them. Maybe it's that style of thinking, but
you like the ceremony of the thing.
I do, yes. And it's great. And I think this is actually one of the more unique and interesting ways that occurs that I have seen. It is summoned on your behalf by the sages, and then they all like cheer you as you go get it. In my recollection anyway, every other time we received a piece of the Triforce or found it or gotten it, it's just you in the room and there's nobody else there. And so I thought that was very interesting. And normally you have to summon it yourself through some act of courage or bravery. And in this case, they summon it on your behalf. So like, that's all unique and interesting. And I liked it a lot.
It's definitely very fun that it takes place in the Chamber of Sages, just like as a location for this happening. Really, really, really great choice. And I definitely really enjoyed that. And I agree with you. I really like the Triforce being a tangible thing that happens within the game. Even though, we do technically like... I'm still actually kind of confused as to when this happens, but in Ocarina of Time, we hear a lot about the Triforce, and obviously we come to possess pieces of it at certain points throughout the game. At the very end, Ganon wants to take them from us, and that's his impetus for like bringing us all together so he can have the whole thing. But we never actually like see the physical Triforce in front of our character. You're right. And
yeah.
And so that's definitely something that I miss in that game for sure. I think it's actually somewhat common knowledge that was like a cut part of Ocarina of Time, was that was actually going to be something that happens. Like, I think people who mod that game have gotten out of the box and found like a chest room that has the Triforce in it or something. Maybe that's apocryphal, but I'm pretty sure that's a real thing. But regardless, we get it here. It's super fun. I don't know. It's really cool bit of Triforce lore, just because tracking the course of the Triforce through the downfall timeline is a really interesting conversation, because it goes back and forth so often between being whole and then pieces being held between different people. Triforce of Courage, disappearing, pieces being split into 8, like it just is kind of all over the place throughout this timeline.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine, man. Hold on. Let me back up. Yes, you're totally right. I totally agree.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, a little fun Triforce conversation there at the very end of the dungeon map. Is there anything else that you want to say before we move on to part 4?
No, I can't think of anything. I think we have covered it succinctly and completely.
All right.
Maybe not succinctly, but definitely completely.
Well, rock on. That's the best we can hope for. Let's move on to part 4, which is Bloopy Trails, where we talk about fascinating things that diverted our attention this week. Matt, what Bloopy Trails did you track down?
Yeah, so I completed the Tower of Terror. I finished the third and final challenge, I guess is what she calls it.
The advanced.
So I did the advanced challenge and completed it and got 5,000 rupees for it. Ooh. So if you're ever low on rupees, there you go. Just go to the Tower of Terror and beat the advanced version, and you'll get 5,000 suckers. So, it was insane. Also, the first time you beat it, you get the upgraded lamp, which has a larger radius of effect and can also set enemies on fire, which is very cool.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's cool. I then went and looked up what else I can get from it to see if I wanted to do it again for any reason whatsoever. And for beating it the second time on advanced and if you beat your time, you get an extra 1,000 rupees on top of the 5,000 that you get, and you get the upgraded bug net.
Okay, cool. Do you consider that, enough incentive to go and do that?
Negative. Nope. Not even a little bit. I don't need rupees anymore now that I have fed the Great Rupee Fairy, and I don't need them to buy any more Rabio items. So I am good. I don't feel any desire to do that.
Well, what about the upgraded bug net? I mean, does the completionist in you just want to like fill out that space, or what are you thinking?
No, I'm good. I am more than happy with the regular bug net.
Cool. Did you happen to see what the upgraded bug net does?
I did not. I think it has just a larger area of effect.
Yeah. Definitely don't necessarily think that's worth the time investment required to go beat this thing again. It's definitely not. I mean, what did it probably take you? 30, 45 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it was a solid 20, 30 minutes. Like it's 50 unique floors, and like 3 of them are interstitial floors where you can get a heart or a fairy. And then you have to fight Purple Moldorm, which, Purple Moldorm is the worst. So, it was definitely not worth the time investment, in my opinion.
But you have the satisfaction of knowing that you completed it.
I do indeed. And I'm glad that I did. I would have beaten my head against that wall for the first completion, no matter what. Like, I was not getting out of this game without completing the Tower of Terror. So sure. I did that.
It is one of those things that I am saying that I have to get done before I beat the game. So haven't done it yet. I really wanted to get, spoiler, how many Mai-Mais do you have?
I have 80, and I'm probably good there because the only thing I have left to upgrade is the Sand Rod, and I don't care about that.
You're not going to get all 100?
I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see how I feel when I go to sit down and play low rule.
You should do it. You get a really cool reward from Mama Mai for doing all 100.
Okay, fine.
And I'm actually not
consider me convinced.
I'm actually not going to tell you what it is now, but it does make the Tower of Terror significantly easier in a lot of ways.
Well, seeing as I've already done that,
right? But also combat in general. It's just it's a really good thing to have.
Okay, fine.
So go get you all those Mai-Mais. Do it.
Fine.
Do it for the sake of doing something good, Matt. Doing something good is your own reward.
Yeah, as if saving both the lands of Hyrule and Low Rule isn't already enough of a good deed.
Well,
Fine.
I mean, when a baby can be saved, you must save the baby. That's kind of like the...
I mean, that's fair.
That's the rule that I operate on.
I think that's a pretty fair rule.
What can I say? I have a few of those. All right. So yeah, for me, it was really just Mai-Mai's, and then of course upgrading the Master Sword to its most powerful form. Next week, I'll be talking more about the Tower of Terror and my experience with it on Hero Mode, which is can be kind of a different beast as far as I remember. But yeah, not too much Bloopy trailing this week. We're really we're getting to the end of what is really possible to get up to there. So, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into part 5, which is Z targeting, where we lock onto fascinating characters or enemies that we happen across this week. And Matt, I will once again let you go first.
I'm going to let you go first this time because you let me go first last week.
Oh, that's fair. I do appreciate your courtesy. I am going to go with Mama Turtle. Because Mama Turtle is just, she's a real one. She says that she has no reward that she can give us, and that is unfortunate. But like I said, sometimes doing nice things is its own reward, and she and her little babies are all kind of cute. And I have a soft spot in my heart for turtles. So I will say I think that Mama Turtle should maybe seek out some more hospitable real estate, just in terms of like a living situation,
For sure. Yeah. There's a few too many Ninja Turtles around there that want to throw fireballs at them. So maybe time to find a nicer place to live.
I think that you're right, Matt. But, all in all, just a very helpful little character. And yeah, like I said, got some very, very cute little turtle babies. I'm still not sure how that one got stuck to the wall, but.
Yeah, that was the physics of that were a little bit interesting to me, but I'm just not going to question it.
I'm not here asking too many questions for sure. Don't want to judge. But yeah, so Mama Turtle, definitely probably the friendliest character that we've met in Low Rule so far, with second place being the Octorok pitcher.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Octorok pitcher's great. All right, so I guess, have I done Batwing Lady from Tower of Terror?
You have not?
I don't remember. Cool. Then I'm going to do Batwing Lady from Tower of Terror, because the fact that she is the bookie for a literal fight to the death fight club, that is so metal. And also, while she is simultaneously doing that, she just has the cheeriest attitude about her little fight to the death gladiator ring. So I'm not sure if I am happy to be in her presence or terrified of her psychopathy, or like where all of that lands morally and ethically. But yeah, there's definitely something going on there, and she's fascinating to me.
Some might say metal, others might say ethically dubious. Whatever.
Definitely ethically dubious, although she does give you fair warning about what you're walking into and tells you that she doesn't make you go in. So, and she even charges you. So really, I don't know if
that's
you
fair.
can
and
say ethically dubious, but it's definitely something.
Your return on investment on that entry fee is pretty extravagant as well. So,
oh my gosh, yes.
So a 5,000 rupee gain on a 200 rupee entry fee is pretty awesome. Not gonna lie.
That was intense. That's the best ROI I've ever seen. Like everybody should invest in that. Yes, invest.
Go all in on Tower of Terror. Yep.
Wall Street is sitting there going buy. Yeah. There you go.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of part 5. Let's go ahead and do part 6. Which is the section in which we let Matt wrap up this segment of the game in as succinct a way as he can think to do. Matt, it is all you, sir.
So this section of the game is leading into our final traditional dungeon of the game. We are now set on the path to go fight Yuga Ganon and get this over with. Let's save some peoples. Along the way to that wonderful conclusion of this section, we have some pretty interesting characters to meet along the way in the form of our little turtle family, who we have a good time saving and then hanging out with. And we get to tackle a fairly good dungeon, which has some good mechanics and some exploration and some good usage of a Ravio item. All in all, a very good section of game that the dungeon section culminates in a pretty good boss fight. I think overall, Lyndon and I were both very pleased with it, and kind of left on a strong note to push us into the finale of our game next week.
Well done, as always, Matt. That, of course, brings us to the end of the Sacred Realms Rundown. We'll be back next week with the final installment of the Sacred Realms Rundown for Season 8, talking about the end of this game, the story that it tells. As always, Matt, it's very, very strange to be at this point in a season, feeling like the beginning was just so recently. It wasn't. It's been weeks and weeks.
Yeah, no, it feels literally like 2 weeks ago that we sat down and started mapping out what this was going to look like. And it's weird to be thinking about packing the 3DS up again for at least for a couple of weeks. I know we're picking it right back up with Phantom Hourglass, but we haven't spent a ton of time with the 3DS since we started the pod. It's been mostly all on the Switch. So it feels a little weird to be looking around for my case again. So, man, it always comes quickly and it's wild. I think we just have too much fun doing it.
I think that you're right. And if by too much fun, you mean a very appropriate amount of fun, and definitely like an amount of fun that I want to continue having forever, then yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, no, I'm there.
I have a question for you. Have you thought about, so when we do Tears of the Kingdom, have you thought about, are you playing handheld? Are you going to do docked on the TV? What's your strategy?
I'm going to try out docked on the TV first, just so I can get the full visual aesthetic, the full picture, I guess, as you might say.
Sure.
Right out of the gate. So I'm going to try to start it docked on the TV. I play my Switch handheld like 95% of the time that I play my Switch. So I will probably end up doing a bit of it, at least a bit, handheld. I don't know why, but I feel like the Switch was meant for that. I don't know why, but and also I have the OLED version, so I'm not going to lose too much graphical fidelity by doing that.
Yeah.
Which is a big bonus for me and for you, because I know you have the SWOLED.
I do, and the SWOLED is beautiful. Yeah, no, I'm probably going to do mostly handheld. I was kind of tempted by docked on the TV, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be better and safer for me to just do this the way that I've been doing it the whole time. And that way I don't have to deal with switching back and forth between the things and having some kind of disconnect there, Yeah,
that's fair. And also, I mean, for you having little nuglet to keep you busy, it's harder to find TV time. So
yep,
that's fair.
I've said it often. The Nintendo Switch is God's gift to parents generally. So
and traveling business people.
So it's a great little device. All right. Well, I think that's probably pretty good, Matt. Are you ready to get out of here for the week?
I am. It's kind of a svelte episode this week, only an hour and 40. So let's go ahead and give the people a little break from our voices before we come back next week.
Yeah, before we come back next week with Nintendo Fangirl after a long absence from this show. It's going to be a really fun conversation. Can't wait to talk to her about Low Rule Castle. And then, also obviously whatever little Tears of the Kingdom tidbit she feels like divulging to us. It's wild to think that we're going to be speaking to somebody who's played the game already.
Yeah, I know. I'm very jealous of that for sure.
All right. That, of course, is next week. Let's go ahead and wrap up this week. Get out of here for the night. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like a little extra Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/sacredrealmspod and become a patron. If you've got no rupees, it is not a problem. 5-star Apple Podcast reviews are a great free way to support us. More reviews means more people see our show, and that makes us very happy Hylians. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sacred Realms Pod for updates on the podcast and for behind-the-scenes action. Sacred Realms will be back next Wednesday with our thoughts on the finale of A Link Between Worlds. We'd love for you to play along with us and to share your thoughts on our social channels. A Link Between Worlds can be played on the Nintendo 2DS and 3DS family of systems. But in the meantime, may your hearts be full, may your arrows never miss. We'll catch y'all next time. Sacred Realms is an independent podcast production, which is produced, edited, and mixed by me, Lyndon Willoughby. Our music comes from Zelda and Chill by Mikkel and is graciously provided to us by Mikkel and Game Chops Records. Zelda and Chill is available to stream on Spotify or to purchase directly from GameChops.com. Finally, our thanks go to Nintendo for creating such exceptional and innovative experiences.